That's always changing. I think I might add some more soon. So the standard kit will get different kinds of needles, so look out for that. But there's 3, 5, and 7. Do you want to explain what that is?
The different needles?
Yeah.
They're different. So the tattoo needles have basically just cover a different amount of surface area. So depending on how fine of a line you want to do, if you're just wanting to do a very simple outline, you might want to use a needle that has a smaller gauge. So, or I guess it's a bigger gauge. Smaller gauge, so yeah, the bigger the number, the smaller the gauge, which is kind of confusing. But
these are the number of needles, but there is something with taper and diameter, and so
yeah. So so within the needles that are on there, there's more or less needles.
Yeah.
The needles themselves have a particular gauge.
Yeah.
If you want a thicker line, you want to use a needle that has more needles on it. So
she's kind of speaking from a syringe perspective also. She works for a harm reduction, which is
it's similar principles, you know, when you're using needles and there's any risk of blood-borne pathogens or potential for people to be sharing equipment and fluid exchange in any kind of way, you know, a lot of the same rules apply. And as far as harm reduction goes, you're engaging in something that's inherently has risk involved, and so we want to minimize the risks that are involved in that. So that's kind of universal, whether you're injecting drugs or giving yourself a tattoo or driving in your car or just walking down the street.
All right.
So you've chosen what?
I'm gonna go with a 5.
Okay, 5.
So there's 5 needles.
5 little needles, and it's a round liner, so it's a round shaped, so you can, each dot is round, and it's a liner, so it's meant for lines. And so so you just open that up, and one thing you can do is check with, if you have a magnifying glass, or if you just want to look really closely at the tip to make sure that the needles look good.
And what are you looking out for when you're looking at the needles?
You're just looking for a good solder on there, because they are soldered together, and that they're all kind of pointing in a round configuration if it's a round liner, and that looks good to me.
Cool.
And that they're not, if any of those are loose, that'd be bad, right? You don't want to lose them in your skin. I mean, it's rare, but it's just good to look. And then, you can
mix up the ink that we made.
Another small little tip when you're mixing the ink, it's okay, you didn't do anything wrong, but just as you're mixing it and then continuing with the tattoo, so the point of the needle is just incredibly fine and sharp, you know, and you want to keep it that way. So anytime that the point touches anything, it's losing some of its dullness.
Like a knife.
Exactly.
To be able to take care of your knives.
So so when you're dipping into your little vial or mixing it, as much as you can avoid hitting the edge of the vial itself, that's just gonna keep it sharper, give you better lines, be less painful.
Nice.
You know, all
good things.
Yeah.
Sure. And then there's another pro tip here, which is to open the hustle butter and put a little bit. Sure.
Okay, just opening it.
Okay. Well, I'll let her grab it out of there. So put a little bit on there, and this will prevent the ink from spreading all over the place while you tattoo.
And it also just take a little here and put that there.
Exactly. There's that little trick.
Helps the little, keeps it in place. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and now Hannah has more experience with tattooing, so I'll just let her guide you through.
Great.
So.
And you've done one before.
It's not my first rodeo.
So it's a bit of a kind of have to just do it, feel how it goes, and always want to err on the side of less is more. Start out really light, and then if you feel like it's not puncturing the skin, or that you're not you can see if the ink is actually sitting, then you want to go a little bit further. But you're not actually going under the skin. You're staying within the epidermal layer. So as far as like technique of where you want to start, that's kind of up to you. If it was for me, I would want to do the circle first. Just because that's the area that keeping the circle round is maybe going to be a bit more more challenging. So yeah, you can do that, and then if you need to redraw on the bottom line, you can go back and do that later.
And you can do multiple pokes while,
Okay.
before dipping again, right?
Right, yeah. So
and you can get kind of the outline and then fill it in later is one technique.
yeah, everybody's skin is a little bit different. Some people have skin that's just a lot more like kind of absorbent by nature, and some people have, like, my skin is pretty coarse and will, like, I kind of have to just takes a little bit more muscle power to actually get it in. But I would do maybe like try starting with 3 pokes per dip.
Okay.
If you feel like you can get by with a little bit more, you don't want to be poking yourself more than you have to, obviously. Another thing you can do with a circle, which I've done with Nicole's, is rather than trying to get the actual, like, the full extent of the line, just going dot by dot, doing kind of like pieces all
at a time.
around, and so it's kind of like a connect the dots,
Nice.
So you have a bit of an outline that you're following.
Yeah, and then you kind of wipe it all away and see where you need to fill in later.
Cool.
All right. And
Yeah.
How's it feeling?
does it hurt?
Luckily it's like a decent, like, more fleshy space.
Uh-huh.
What are there better areas than others that hurt less, and what usually causes,
Oh my goodness.
It's fingers hurt so bad.
Fingers.
My finger tattoos all hurt really bad.
Yeah.
And they wear off quicker.
I did one on my toe. That was I have quite a few tattoos, and that tattoo was really brutal. I think just because it's right on the bone, there's
Yeah.
not a lot of anywhere like you said that's a bit fleshier. Is it's just kind of a matter of where there's a collection of nerve endings. Fingers have a lot of nerve endings. This one I did on my wrist was pretty painful just because it's also, there's a lot of nerves that travel right there. Another tip that helps with not just how pain and comfort level, but also how your body is going to react to the tattoo in general is, in general, like, you want to be in good health. Like, if you're sick and your body's already kind of working in overdrive to try to fight something, like, it's going to have a harder time. You're injuring yourself, and your body is going to have to work to heal
Definitely.
it. Also, being nourished, you want to be fed. You don't want to get a tattoo when you're really hungry or dehydrated or underslept.
Or under any alcohol. You don't really want to be drinking and get a tattoo.
Exactly. That also, like, thins your blood and is, not a great idea for all. You might end up with a really not okay tattoo. And that's as far as safety goes. You want to make sure that you're in a good state of mind.
Definitely.
And also being warm, making sure that you're, like, physically comfortable. Pores, yeah.
Oh, cool.
So your body will absorb the ink a little bit better. You want to, it's not like, tattoo, it also, like, it is painful, and so as much as you can make it as
comfortable and enjoyable as possible.
Yeah.
You are injuring yourself.
Right.
Your body's like, what the F?
Yeah, and it's going to have to heal afterwards. There's a big difference between stick and poke tattoos as far as healing time goes and getting a tattoo in a shop where it's generally you're going a little bit ideally the way it should be, like, you're not going super deep, you're covering less of a surface area, you heal pretty quickly from it, but you still want to take a lot of the same precautions as if you're getting a tattoo in a shop, which is like you don't get in the hot tub right afterwards. You
keep it covered, wash it every day, and we'll talk about that too, I guess, when we put on the Band-Aid and stuff.
And then when you were in here earlier and we were chatting, you were talking about kind of, your background in the safety of needles and kind of fighting the stigma of at-home tattoos and just tattooing in general. You want to speak to that a little bit too?
Yeah, I think the origins are really interesting. That all cultures on all continents had a tattooing tradition for various reasons: rites of passage, pregnancy. I don't know. Help me out. Everything, a human experience.
Right. Milestones.
Milestones of human
Yep.
experience.
And body modification, has been historically a big part of human existence. I think that there's a lot of stigma that comes from at-home tattooing is associated with prisons and people giving themselves and each other tattoos in prisons.
Or middle schools.
Or in middle school.
Which we don't recommend.
Right.
No, it must be 18.
And I think that the circumstances in which people are tattooing in prisons are really quite different. In that, like, having the materials is all considered contraband. People aren't able to access the supplies that they need easily, and so stuff is smuggled in, or stuff is made out of whatever people can find, ballpoint pens, and whatever it is, like pieces of glass. Like, people use all kinds of things, and they do what they can with what they have, which often leads to it not being safe and being shared amongst a lot of people. The rates of hepatitis C transmission in prisons are really huge. It's like upwards of 80 to 90% of inmates can either have Hep C going in or contract it while they're incarcerated, for not just because of tattooing, but for all the other ways in which the virus can be spread. And